It's time for Recipe of the Day. Happy Friday. We made it. What a week. Now, if you've been listening regularly, you know that I'm actually in Denver speaking at a conference right now, like literally on this very day. And so I've pre-recorded this and I am not home for the weekend doing any of the beautiful things that would be wonderful to be doing this weekend. It is warm and lovely this time of year in most of the country. And so I thought it would be a great time to talk about a wonderful grilling recipe that I love. This is for a grilled pork loin. So I'm going to start by saying that I am talking about the pork loin, not the pork tenderloin. These are very different cuts and you would cook them very differently on the grill. So the pork loin is a larger cut of meat from the back of the pig. It can be sold bone in or boneless. It's usually like 2 to 5 pounds. And because of that size, you wouldn't normally want to put it on the grill over high heat and leave it over high heat until it gets cooked all the way through, because it's going to be way too dry on the outside for something that size. Not that it's huge, but it's bigger than the tenderloin I'm going to talk about in a second. It is too big to be there and it would get really dry on the outside. The pork tenderloin, on the other hand, is usually like a pound at most, maybe like 1.25 pounds long and thin. That one you do kind of want to cook quickly. You just want to get it on the heat and off of the heat, and it's going to be lovely like that. So different cooking methods for the two. They are both that white, lean pork meat that can be a little bit on the dry side. You do want some seasoning, maybe some sauce. Maybe you brine them. I will link to how to brine both of them. That does really help bring extra flavor into the meat and a little bit of extra tenderness or juiciness. So that's always a great option for both of those. But even if you're not doing that for this pork loin, you're not brining it, this recipe actually does turn out a wonderful loin of pork right on the barbecue, and it makes your whole neighborhood smell amazing. Like, you know, when you're going for a walk and you're like, oh, somebody is grilling something great. Well, it will be your house that people are saying that about if you're making this pork loin. Okay, you're going to start by seasoning up that loin, and I have a really nice pork rub or pork seasoning blend that works great here. It is right in the recipe for the grilled pork loin, so it's there, but I'm also going to link to the standalone version for this pork rub because it has some like other ideas of ways that you can like make it spicier or richer, so you might want to have a look at that as well. But the basic one is great as it is. I recommend that you mix it up in a bowl, and then when you're rubbing it on the pork, you can go straight from the bowl to the pork and not be like touching all the containers and all your measuring spoons and touching the pork as you go. You know what I mean? You also get a more even distribution of the seasonings all over the pork. So mix together a 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika. I love smoked paprika, that beautiful smoky flavor. Even though we are grilling this and not doing it on a smoker, you still get some of that smoke flavor, right? 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. If you were using just regular table salt, you would just use a little bit less because the kosher salt has bigger flakes, and so the volume is a little bit more. It's like fluffier. So like 1.5 tablespoons of regular salt, 1.5 teaspoons of ground black pepper, and a teaspoon of garlic powder. And this is for a 3 to 4 pound pork loin, okay? So you're going to mix that all together, and then you rub it all over the pork loin. I would probably like sprinkle some, rub. If your pork loin's a little bit smaller than the one listed there, it might be a little bit too much, but I think you're going to be just fine. It's a lot of really good seasoning. It's not going to be too salty. It should be great. Oh, if you were brining this, like I mentioned you could do, you would skip the salt from this seasoning blend, okay? There's enough salt in the brine. You don't need to add more here. Okay, once that's rubbed up, just leave it on the counter, and it just kind of is coming up to room temperature a little bit, like for like half an hour at the most. And while that's happening, you can get your grill ready. And you want to prepare your grill with 2 cooking zones, one low zone and one high zone. The easiest way to do that is to turn on some of the burners and not the others. So if you have a 3-burner gas grill, turn on the left burner to like medium high and leave the other 2 off. If you have a 4-burner gas grill, turn the 2 left burners to medium high, and leave the other 2 off. charcoal grill, you're going to prepare your charcoal to be under 1/2 of the grill, okay? And you want your grill to be at about 300 and as high as 350 degrees Fahrenheit, just somewhere in that range. If your grill has a thermometer, you can use that to find out. But if you do not have a thermometer, mine on my grill doesn't work, then you do the hand test. You're going to put your hand about 5 inches above the grill grate, and then you count how many seconds you can hold it there comfortably. As soon as you're like, oh, I want to pull it away, that is when you pull it away. We're looking at about a 3 to 4 seconds, sort of like a medium heat. Okay, then once your grill is ready and your pork has had the seasoning on it for about 30 minutes and has just been like not fridge cold, it's been sitting at room temperature for a bit, then you are putting it onto the grill on the cool side. So it's going not over the burners, okay? And you're leaving it there for about an hour. You're going to check the temperature at the 30-minute mark, or you can have a probe in there that's telling you all the time what the temperature is right in the middle. It is going to take about an hour, but sometimes things are just off. If your pork loin is a little bit narrower or your grill is a lot hotter, it could be different. So when it reaches 130 degrees Fahrenheit, that's your goal, you are then moving the pork roast over to the direct heat side of the grill. So what we've done there is we have slowly cooked the pork loin nice, low and slow, nice and juicy. And then for the end, we're finishing it off over the higher heat to develop a nice crust on the outside. I would not brush any kind of barbecue sauce or anything on here at this point. If you're going to, I would wait. Now, so it's at 130 when you move it over, and you want it to stay there until it's nice and like getting a crispy crust on the outside and is about 145 degrees Fahrenheit in the middle. Now we're going to talk about this. I say this all the time. 145 is the minimum safe temperature for pork. So technically you could actually take it off before then, like at 140, and let it rise up to 145 as it rests. It will do that for sure. Having said that, a lot of people don't like their pork to be on the pink side. If that's you, you definitely don't want to take it off at 140. You might even want to wait past 145. When I was growing up, when I was a kid, the safe temperature for pork was 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So I grew up with pork just a little bit more well done. I don't love it. I don't love that it's a little bit drier, but I find the pink look of pork to be a little bit off-putting. So if this is me, I leave it on until it's at 150 degrees Fahrenheit and then take it off. So all that matters is that before you eat it, that temperature at some point says 145 degrees Fahrenheit. You can decide if you're taking it off at 140, letting it rise to 145. If you're taking it off at 145, 150, letting it rise a little bit more, up to you. Whatever temperature you're deciding on, you take it off the grill at that point, tent it loosely with foil, let it rest for 15 minutes, double check that that temperature raised up if it needed to get past 145, and then slice it thinly to serve it. Because pork loin is that just a little bit leaner meat, you want to make it as easy as possible to chew. This is just a real thing. When you slice something thinner, it's easier for our teeth to get through it, and then we perceive it as more tender than when it is really a thicker cut, okay? So we thick cut things, we eat things like steaks in big bites when they're nice and tender and juicy. Things that might not be, we're going to go a little bit thinner on those to make it a little bit easier, okay? You know what? I mentioned barbecue sauce and then I didn't finish off with that. Okay, while it's still on the grill, if you wanted to add some kind of barbecue sauce, you can. You would do that just for the last 5 degrees. You want the actual pork to kind of get crisped up, and then the barbecue sauce is going to go on and char just a little bit at the end. So then you would do that just at the end, maybe for 5 minutes, and then take the pork roast off. Okay, that is how you grill pork loin. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there, or find it in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. And hey, just a quick note. I'm on a recording hiatus right now, so for the next little while, I'm replaying episodes from the archives, including this one. If you heard me mention a holiday, a season, or something going on in my life that seemed a bit off, that's why. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're enjoying these older episodes. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, cookfor2.us, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.